Now that you've heard that
It
on
sounds better than I
Instagram and
thought.
everything, did you adequately rebuke me as a Christian brother for my egregious mistake of saying you were the 30th overall pick in the 1988 NFL draft when you were in
Uh,
actuality the 29th overall pick
you
in the
know,
draft? You satisfied? Do
yes,
we need to go back to that? And
I have, but what
okay.
it's taught me, it's exhausting because I got a lot on my plate.
Oh,
Now I
you
got to
do.
add the editing to my
Yeah,
plate,
you
and I
do.
have to read through your Twitter, which is, by the way,
Yeah.
since we are in our podcast and we're talking to our friends, presumably,
Wednesday edition, Spielman and Hooley, We Tackle Life podcast.
I got to commend you on
Well,
how you're
great.
handling. No, how you're handling. I mean, I just think
Handling what?
your responses in Twitter, they're
Okay.
not. You don't go after anybody personally. You're just pointing out things that you believe are facts, and they are facts about constitutional rights and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. And I get the passion and understand the fear that some people have. I
Yeah.
understand the passion that some people have. And I just think your behavioral change on how you're responding to Twitter has been remarkable and fun to see and much more enjoyable where I don't feel uncomfortable reading some of your. No, I did. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Like some of them, I did feel a little bit uncomfortable reading because I knew.
Back in the day, you mean?
Yeah, because I knew that wasn't the man that I knew. And the responses can still be vicious, but it doesn't affect how you respond back. So I just think it is a good lesson in one that I put into practice, and it's been put into practice on me when a friend or somebody who truly cares about you, or there's an accountability factor, points something out where somebody doesn't take it personal. You sit there, you think about it. Well, maybe that's a good point that I can try to put into practice. And you have done that in a remarkable way. And for me, I can only speak for me and my experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's been enjoyable to read the back and forth, and for you not to get personal on other people when quite clearly they think they're very clever and funny and they get personal on you. You don't respond to that. You respond to it with facts and like an adult. And it goes to what we've been talking about trying to talk to people
Yes.
instead of trying to mock them or talk over them. So it's been I've enjoyed it. I mean, I actually search B Hools now.
Wow.
It's because I enjoy your opinion. I agree with your opinion. But I have an understanding of where fear can come from. And my only piece of advice, and what I continue to do as we step one day closer
Mm-hmm.
toward a responsible, as I think Governor DeWine, a responsible reopening of Ohio,
Yeah.
is that I ask people to be aware, to be responsible, but don't live with fear. And hopefully we can get to that point as a society. And I think we're moving in that direction. So I'm very optimistic today.
Well, your affirmation would mean the world to me if you weren't my boyfriend.
What are you
As
talking
one
about?
Twitter critic
Oh.
said, you and your boyfriend,
Yeah.
Chris Spielman.
Well, again, I mean, so if he feel when I get tweets like that, I want those people. I hope you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I really do by saying something. I hope you feel better. I hope you feel affirmed. I hope you feel justified. I hope you feel like you got one over on me. You got me. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And usually when you respond like that, then there's nothing you can say. But I mean, a couple of the back and forth you had were educational. I mean, one guy was pointing out legitimately what his concerns were, and then you were coming back, but you weren't coming back at him by attacking his feelings. You were just coming back with him by what is important to you, which is very important to you, and it should be very important to all of us, but it's not important to all of us, but to you and to many, it's very important. So it's just been entertaining for me, and it causes me and allows me to see both sides, look at the information and where both sides are coming from, and making a decision on what side I fall on. So thank you.
We will get to the NFL scheduling. Chris has news on that. We will get to Last Dance, which Chris has encouraged me to watch, the Chicago Bulls documentary, and name, image, and likeness conversation today with Gene Smith and Michael Drake. and the NCAA Poobahs. We want to remind you that Hemisphere Coffee Roasters is the official coffee of the Spielman and Hooley podcast. You can see on the wall behind us if you're watching on YouTube or on a clip on Facebook that Hemisphere Coffee Roasters can be reached at hemispherecoffeeroasters.com. Order your coffee, any flavor, any variety, breakfast blend, getting big reviews on Twitter.
Yeah.
Nicaragua, Thailand, Ethiopia. We can recommend a type of coffee if you'd like for us to. Just reach out, spielmanhooleypodcast@gmail.com or via our Twitter @WeTackle. But Hemisphere Coffee Roasters, their mission is to spread the gospel around the world, but they also are capitalists and they got to make money, and we're about that as well, and they treat their people really well. A friend of mine ordered from Hemisphere Coffee Roasters. He got a handwritten note of appreciation.
Nice.
And they said they're trying to do that with every order to let people know that they appreciate it as a small business in a difficult time. Their retail store obviously, is curtailed, but they have social distancing observations. If people want to visit their retail store in Mechanicsburg, but they appreciate the business, and we appreciate you supporting our sponsor. So hemispherecoffeeroasters.com, they'll donate your 15% discount to COVID-19 relief and add to it if you, in the comment section, note that you heard about them on the Spielman and Hooley podcast. If you want the 15% discount, in all caps, use the promo code WeTackleLife. So hemispherecoffeeroasters.com. I thought maybe I went over the line yesterday with a tweet where somebody was coming at me about, the whole older people are at risk and all this stuff. And I said, well, my intention is if I go out and I see an older person, is I'm not going to go up and lick their face and spread my germs to them. That was probably over the line.
I can see how you can think that, but if I'm going to seriously be somebody that takes a honest look at your tweets, which I think I have done over the years, I think you're trying to make the point that I'm not going to be irresponsible and put somebody at risk. And people need to know that I think do you wear a mask if you go to the grocery store or you go?
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that. But see, I have cousins who are 10 years and older than me who I cherish very much. Your mother-in-law, Myra, is a delightful person. Your mom, Nancy, is a delightful person. I've met them. I would never do anything to cause them
intentional
unrest, anxiety, or certainly nothing to put them in peril. I wouldn't. I have my compassion for them as such that I know Sherry's mom and dad are both still with us there in Arizona. I pray that Arnie, who's in his mid 80s, is very careful and observes the social distancing guidelines. So all that said, we always have to qualify that we're not, uncaring people. But this mindset that has been given to me many times on Twitter. Ryan is the person, the latest person to send this to me. And I just want to address this because I think it's productive to hopefully what we're having this conversation is about is not two guys griping about being sequestered or limited or whatever. Like I posted the other night, somebody please explain to me why driving ranges are closed. Not because I'm like, oh, I got to get out and hit golf balls, but some of the closures make no sense to me. Like a dentist can be open, but a hair salon can't. Like if you're talking about what puts people in closer social contact, it's dentists. I'm facing away from the person who cuts my hair. My wife's cutting my hair now, and she does a fine job. I may never go back and get my hair cut in public again because I find out I don't need it. She can do it.
Ingenuity.
But I'm just saying,
intervention. Some
of these prohibitions are in my mind silly. You can't get within 6 feet of somebody at a driving range, or you get hit in the head with a golf club. So Ryan comes at me with this whole this logic. The economy can recover. We can't bring dead people back to life. If we can save one life by following the guidelines, we should. I find this argument illogical. I don't find it compatible with logic to say that if we can save one life, we should. I can save a lot of lives. I can outlaw abortion. I can save a lot of lives. I can outlaw alcohol. I can save a lot of lives. I can outlaw all drugs, some of which heal people via prescription, but some of which are abused, opioids, which a lot of people die by opioids. I can save a lot of lives by outlawing all air travel, all car travel. The argument that, well, this will save a life, so it makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. Everything in life is risk-reward. Now, let me say this. If you're immunocompromised, My friend down the road, Sharon, she's immunocompromised. I don't want Sharon going out. I want her to be very safe. I want her kids to be very safe. They're coming home. Like I've got a friend, Scarlett, same situation. But the thing that, you also have people dying of depression, and you have people who are not going in and getting mammograms, and people who are not going in and getting their hearts examined because, I got a little thing in my chest and I'm not going in. Then you have a heart attack and die. If you'd gone in 2 weeks earlier, you'd have been looked at, you'd have been fine. So everything, I'm trying to maintain my measured approach because I think it's more effective. Everything is a risk reward, and you cannot eliminate risk. We started this whole thing to flatten the curve, keep our hospitals from being overwhelmed, ramp up our PPE equipment, ramp up our ventilators, all that. We have accomplished that. Not even New York City has been overrun. Mayor Cuomo himself said, as many deaths as they've had, Mayor Cuomo said, not one person has died because we couldn't get him a ventilator. We couldn't get him care. They've died because we couldn't help them recover, but they've not died because of lack of medical care. So we've accomplished our goal. Now you're moving the goalpost on me saying, well, we're trying to make it so nobody gets COVID. That is not possible.
Well, one of the blessings I've had in my life through playing in the NFL, through our family's cancer journey, through family members, through other people, I've been able to do an informal survey or just have conversations. And every doctor that I talk to, every doctor, and these are all the connections, and not just Ohio, but from around the world in all different fields, but certainly have knowledge. And you have doctor friends. Every one of them that I've talked to take this very seriously, as they should, as you do, as I do. They also are big believers in herd immunity. And they also know that you cannot eliminate all risk. We can't stop people from dying. And I would be the first to say that many that die from COVID-19, it's very unfair. It's very unfair. So is a young kid that gets hit by a drunk driver and dies. It's very unfair. So is a woman in her 40s who dies of cancer with young kids. That's very unfair. We are not going to be able to stop death. In fact, if you look at history and the record of death, death only has one loss versus all humanity. Death is batting 99.9%. Of course, Jesus overcoming death was the only loss that death had. Other than that, death is won. So death is going to happen. We're going to be surrounded by death. Dying is part of living. But that being said, I understand where his heart is. He wants to do everything he can to help and save people. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do that. Just not going to happen. And there is, I mean, it's cold, but it's true. There's a cost benefit. If you have a death rate, say it ends up being 0.06, 0.03, that's if you have say a 0.1% in the United States of America, that would be 3 million deaths. So we'll probably be under 0.1 because there's 327 million people in the United States. That's quick math, Maslin math. I think I'm somewhere in the ballpark.
Very good, very impressive.
So then, if you're at point, that was 0.6, so 0.3 would be 150,000 deaths. So
you said you want 3 million, half of that.
Yes, thank you.
1.5 million.
1.5 million, and that's it. So, but to me though, I look at, and if he's going to look at that, then he has to look at the other side. And I was talking to a physician about this, and what a difficult place Amy Acton's in, with Mike DeWine, John Husted, Donald Trump, and every governor. The difficult situation that they're in. And I acknowledge this is very difficult. I think it's unfair of us to sit there and say, uh, DeWine's a dictator. I don't believe his heart is in that place. I believe his heart is in the right place, like I believe every governor's heart is in the right place. But he also has to weigh the amount of domestic abuse and child abuse, the amount of if somebody was scheduled for a mammogram and if they're young or it's their first one, well, I'll wait another year. Well, it could be too late. Those are going to happen. Those are deaths that could have been prevented. As you mentioned, people with a heart issue,
Mhm.
or they're afraid to go to the hospital or afraid to go to the doctor. Those are deaths that could have been prevented. So we're not going to win. So it has to come down to what I've said on Twitter, and it's a simple rule. And I sent this out to my family yesterday, being, the kind of like the leader of the family, being the the patriarch. I said this: look, when you're out and when we do things, we start opening up. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to be aware, be responsible, but don't live in fear.
Mm-hmm.
But be responsible. So I think that's what he's saying. But they're so locked in on fear that fear will paralyze people.
Yes, it will.
It'll paralyze you from doing anything. How do I know this? Because I lived in fear for a couple years. I was afraid of Stephanie dying. I was afraid of that. And so I did everything in the world to protect her. And no matter what I did, no matter how much control that I tried to take of that situation, I couldn't control the situation. And you can say you can control it. Yeah, you can control not passing COVID-19 if you're an asymptomatic carrier onto somebody else, if you lock yourself in for the next 2 years.
Yep.
I'll give you that. You're exactly right. You can control that. But understand that if everybody did that, society as we know it would disappear. And I'm not willing to sacrifice society for that. So I think that would be a good answer, but also acknowledging his legitimate concern.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a Democrat, a strong Democrat. He's a guy we converse on the NFL, on the Buckeyes. He's involved in the NFL. He and I couldn't be more different on our political ideologies, but there's a way to have conversations, and we have them, about this, and I honor his position, and he honors mine. And it was interesting yesterday. We were having this conversation because he's fine with the state doing what I perceive to be an overreach. For instance, I think the governor made a very smart decision when he floated the idea of masks being mandatory, and yesterday backed off and said they're strongly recommended, because it's a violation of your constitutional rights for them to mandate masks. Okay, individual businesses can say, no shoes, no shirt, no service. No shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. Correct. They can do that.
That's their right.
But the government cannot do that.
Right.
And so this gentleman who I converse with, saying he sanctions that, the government can do that. He's like okay with it. Because he has someone in his family who's immunocompromised.
Right.
And he wants to protect. And he said to me, well, I think it's fine for them to say it because some people are too stupid to know what's good for them, and the government can, I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially his thing.
Well, that's what most people are saying.
He said, I'm looking out for my family. And I said, it's interesting you say that. I said, I understand why you're looking out for your family. I said, you may not recognize this, but I feel I'm looking out for my family. Because I have 3 girls, and I don't want them to grow up in a society where we move from, well, we made you wear masks because we were concerned about COVID-19, to what I think is not as far stretch, which is the government overreaching on things like faith and other elements. I said, you're looking out for what you prize for your family, which is right now the imminent health situation they face.
Understandably.
I'm looking out for the future of my girls, in that I want them to grow up in a country with religious freedom and with individual choice and things like that, on what's good for them. And I said, so we have kind of the same goals, but they're manifested in this moment in different ways. He and I have a conversation. We don't agree. We're probably not going to agree. But he's still my friend. We'll still text each other.
Right.
We'll still laugh. We'll find common ground. And I think that's where we have to go.
Right.
And we have to agree. Like it's always, you always say, talk to people, not over people.
Well, I think the other thing to recognize is I mean, people, like, I happen to think that most people will be responsible and understand that if they're in a large group or going to a store,
Mhm.
that they'll put on a mask because.
Let's talk about that. Masks. How do you feel? Because I've struggled with the whole mask
Here's
thing.
how I feel about it. And I go off of science. My personal feeling doesn't matter. Okay, I go off of science for me, but this is the important thing. This is my individual choice, my choice to make. I'm coming here, hanging out with you, keeping social distance, but I'm not wearing a mask. If I go to the grocery store today and I look at the science, and the science says I don't wear a mask to protect myself. If I'm an asymptomatic carrier, I don't know it, then I do think it's my responsibility to protect others from getting this. Then I will wear a mask. I mentioned all those doctors that I talked to. I asked them about that, and they recommend that. Not that you're going to protect yourself. And the other thing is that people have to understand is that with a mask, that you have to wash it, you have to sanitize it, or get a new mask every single time because of what's gathered, from my understanding, what's gathered in that mask. You just can't keep one.
You can't keep one in your car and throw it on every time you go in the store if you're trying to accomplish the goal of being as germ-free as you can be.
But I told my kids, like two of my my stepdaughter and my youngest daughter are splitting a babysitting job. I said, when you go to over, and they started this week, when you go there, put a mask on.
Yeah.
And, if they tell you you can take the mask off, then you take the mask off. But you go there and put a mask on until you're told different, out of respect for what you're doing. And out of respect, like if I go to a store or a retail store when it opens, and that retail store says, in order to come in here, you have to have a mask. And I will do that and comply because they're asking me to do that, and I don't have a problem doing that. I took my Macy to her PT appointment at Orthopedic One. When I walked into the lobby, her and I got her temperature checked, and they gave us a mask. We walked in and had her PT thing.
Okay.
So, I look at it like, if I can prevent somebody in a grocery store or in a mask where there's a lot of people, I don't have a problem. But that's my choice. I educated myself. I looked at what I thought was right. I don't want to be forced to wear it. I'm choosing to wear it in that type of atmosphere or situation.
I still have much of my old nature in me, which is to be cantankerous. Don't tell me what to do, that kind of thing. It's not a good Christian attitude. I fight it. So when the mask issue came up, my first response was, well, I'm not wearing one. And the reason why, I said, okay, why are you not wearing one? And I thought, because I'm not fearful. God didn't give me a spirit of fear. He gave me a spirit of power, love, self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1:7. And then another verse came to my mind. And the verse was, as much as is possible, live at peace with other people. And I thought, okay, let's go through the scenario here, Bruce. You're in a Kroger, you don't have a mask on. And it bothers someone who's in there that you don't have a mask on. They say something to you, you clap back at them. Is that productive? Are you giving a good witness for Jesus in that situation? No, I'm not. And I said, in my mind, I'm playing this conversation out, and I know myself, my snarky
see the battle going on with you.
And I would say, you snarking at me about not wearing a mask has caused me to talk to you, which I'm spreading more germs to you now because you're complaining about my lack of mask than if you would just let me pass you in the hallway. And I thought, what's productive about that? Nothing is productive about that. So I have moved my position from, it felt to me initially like because when I saw people with masks, I'm like, wow, these people, there's a lot of fear out there. I don't have the fear. I have respect, but I don't have fear.
Right.
I feel sorry for them, but the fear's real. It is. And I thought, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting it out there that I'm fearful. And then I thought, you know what? Maybe you're not putting it out there that you're fearful. Maybe you're just trying as much as possible to live at peace with other people. So I'll wear a mask. If I go out and it's a place where the store says we require you to wear a mask, if I get on an airplane, and JetBlue the other day was like, they're going to require people to wear masks. And I tweeted probably something that was dumb. I said, okay, so what are they going to do if you get on the plane and you take it off?
Mhm.
Are they going to throw you out? Like, you're on the plane,
Yeah.
but, you know, if you disobey a flight attendant, I think that's a federal crime.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try to create arguments, create angst, be divisive. If all I have to do to live at peace with other people is put a mask on, look, for me, I don't need it. I don't even want it. But as much as is possible with me, can I wear a mask and can I go into for 5 minutes while I'm in Kroger? Yeah, I can. So I will.
Hmm.
That's where I've come to.
Well, I look at it too, and this, I don't want I want government to stay out of business as much as possible. Then a business has a right to choose.
Yeah.
Business can choose how they want to operate their business. You have, when any business you go into, there's certain rules. No drinks allowed.
Mhm.
And I can choose whether I decide to patronize that business or not. That's my whole thing. It's freedom of choice.
Yeah.
But I think we're on the same page here because everybody goes to the extreme. Like people that don't wear a mask, their automatic argument is that's a civil rights violation, which it could be, yes. But we're in a circumstance, so it doesn't hurt you for a minute or until we get through this. To if the business requires it, put on a mask. You don't have to.
Right.
That's what I think. This is exactly what Acton, DeWine, and Husted were trying to say yesterday. We don't. What he was saying is we don't have the power to make you wear a mask. But think about it, okay?
Yeah, I get it through.
Yeah, and just let's all work together. But we're not going to force you to do that. And it's the business's choice whether they determine if you want to wear a mask or not. And this is another thing. I talked to a government official, and he was a little frustrated. And this is at the federal level, not at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little frustrated, and he said, I don't understand that people think that government's going to fix all their problems and make all their decisions for them. We're going to give them information, then people eventually have to take responsibility for what you choose to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Governor DeWine tries to say that. I just don't understand why you can't say, hey, we're not going to be your mother or your father.
Well, in the federal government too, it's like all the states are like, we need ventilators, we need this, we need that. Well, when we were founded, the states didn't want to give up their rights. So it's like not everything's the government's fault, not everything's the government's responsibility to fix. So hopefully we can get back to a mindset where we have some personal responsibility.
So and that's, I think this whole mask thing is, it's freedom of choice, but be personally responsible and aware. Stop walking around in fear, because I got news for you. Death only lost once in the history of the world.
But it lost all the time and eternally because of that.
So, but it's not going to lose again. So I mean, I got to tell you, death is bad.
Not until he comes back.
Well, yes, thank you. But I'm just, until that happens, yes, there's going to be death. And there's going to be unfair death due to COVID, due to cancer, due to drunk driving, due to overdosing, due to everything.
Yeah.
So that's just life. And I don't want to hear the other thing that really, well, did you lose somebody? Yeah, I did. And so did a lot of other people. I'm not special. Yeah, I've lost somebody unfairly to death. And so have millions of other people. Just the way it is. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you understand that there's risk in life and that not one single day is guaranteed. Do not worry about tomorrow. Today has enough worries of itself.
We want to remind you to nominate someone in need of COVID-19 relief. A lot of unemployed people out there, a lot of people with concerns, valid concerns economically. We want to help. We give away $1,000 every Friday in COVID-19 relief thanks to Chris's memorabilia auctions. It's fully funded, $40,000.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic.
With my wealth and connections, it could have been tons more.
According to one critic on Twitter, yes, could have been tons more. So please nominate someone, and you can do it via email, spielmanhooleypodcast@gmail.com. And I will shout out my friends at Kurtz Brothers Mulch and Soil. It's mulch season. Munch Cleveland would tell us it's always munch season. No, it's mulch season. Kurtz Brothers, they're giving you 38% off in the form of a Visa gift card, which they encourage you to spend at local restaurants to help keep them in business.
Yeah. Good.
So Kurtz Brothers, good people and doing a good thing.
That's a good thing too. This is another good lesson. They're giving away this. They're encouraging you to spend it at a restaurant. They're not telling you.
Yeah, they're not giving you a gift card and making you go.
Yeah.
Do what you want with that.
You know, it's like.